after the destruction of Cadia and the Great Rift's opening, Ezekiel Abaddon's crusade turned from a chaotic, somewhat unified military force into countless splinter warbands that descended upon the bloodied Imperium. The 13th Black Crusade, however, was still far from over. The warp tear across the galaxy created an open doorway for traitor marines, and at the Ybrannis system's edge, such a warp tear manifested into real space. The fertile Agri-worlds had gained the attention of the 14th Legion, Death Guard. Ybrannis Primus and Ybrannis Secundus had always been incredibly vital to the functioning of the sector, and with Imperium Nihilus cut off from the rest of the Imperium, their importance only grew. The two worlds had replenished the galactic north for centuries. It was only because of the incredible efficiency and production of the Agri-worlds that the region remained fed. Countless Imperial citizens relied upon the system's food supplies, with a plethora of hive worlds almost solely relying on the planets to sustain their populations. Yet, it was not only the ordinary citizens who relied upon the Ybrannis system, but also armies of the Astra Militarum. Imperial Guard forces frequently passed through the system to resupply, with the world essentially being the breadbasket of the region. The planets were considered extremely safe and very well protected within Imperial territory, but at the dawn of the Great Rift, this pretty much meant that the worlds were fair game to chaos, because almost immediately, a warband from the Death Guard's 4th Plague Company, known as the Wretched, breached real space to assault the planets. The Plague Company's warlord very much saw the importance of the Ybrannis system and how the Agri-worlds connected to countless other worlds, making it ideal in spreading contagion across the Imperium. The master of the 4th Plague Company was no mortal, though, but a demon known as the Eater of Lives, a gestalt demon of plagues that also dwells within the very plague named after it and anyone it inhabits. So an aspect of it is connected to all of the bodies of the Death Guard within the 4th Company. In essence, though the demon was not present itself, it can extend its consciousness to all infected by the Eater virus, possessing any and all it sees fit to command the warband. Some suspect the Eater of Lives to be Ignatius Grugor, the commander of the pre-heresy 2nd Company of the Death Guard Legion, though commander is just a unique title, similar to Battle Captain Garrow of the 7th Company of the 14th Legion. Grogor was one of the 3 most prominent captains of the Great Crusade-era Death Guard, the other 2 being Nathaniel Garrow and Callus Typhon. Grogor was killed in his attempt to assassinate Nathaniel Garrow at the Horus Heresy's genesis. He was then raised as the first Plague Marine by Nurgle, only to be killed by Garrow and his legendary blade Libertas. Later, Grugor returned yet again, and eventually was transformed into a demon prince by the chaos god of entropy. In any case, the Eater of Lives led the assault utilizing the mortal shells of its warriors. The demon's plan was to infect the supply chain itself, and with the Ybrannis system conquered, they'd be able to infect countless other Imperial worlds with the Eater virus. Right away, the Death Guard ships broke out of the warp into the Ybrannis system filled with stockpiles of deadly vials of contagion, and immediately began defiling the Agri-worlds. The Ybrannian Planetary Defense Force, or just PDF for short, and the god engines of Legio Ignis, also known as the Fire Kings, readied themselves for battle, yet knew they would not prevail alone. The Agri-worlds' defenders desperately hoped someone from the Imperium would receive the signal in time and send aid. The system's defenses were set up for raiders and the like, being very unsuited to stand against the might of heretic Astartes. The civilian populations immediately started to suffer horrendously from the Death Guard, though this was just the beginning of their nightmare. Since there was no way such an invasion could occur before the Great Rift, and not having time to prepare, the world's defenders sent out a wide-field distress call in all directions, hoping the Imperium would send them aid and save the breadbasket of the region. Lucky for them, the Salamanders chapter on the death world of Nocturne received the distress signal, and a strike force of the chapter set forth to defend the Ybrannis system. When the Fireborn arrived in real space, they'd encountered another force of the Imperium that had come to the system's aid before them, though they were utterly crushed, and the debris of their ship drifted towards the system's sun. The Space Marines tried to make contact with any survivors, but nothing came of it. On the planets themselves, it was clear that the PDF was battling heretics, with signals emanating erratically from the Agri-world surfaces. Despite their best efforts, the Salamanders could not make contact with any of the defenders and were forced into action without any briefing or intelligence to aid them in the coming battle. Stoically, the Salamanders pushed forth to reinforce the defense of the system. The first action of the Space Marines was to assault the Death Guard that had taken control of feed processing cities that slowly revolved around Ybrannis Prime on motorized treads in the clouds. The once beautiful factorums had been corrupted by Plague Marines, billowing forth a toxic gas halo around the planet. The opening engagement went well for the Salamanders as they purged the heretics in flame. The Death Guard did not have the numbers to stop them and found themselves quickly overwhelmed. After taking control and reinstating order for the civilians, the orbital ring was declared liberated. The Fireborn then made their way down to the planet itself, where they discovered the PDF force fighting a desperate battle against the traitors. And upon receiving hails over the comms from the Salamanders, the remaining Titans were pretty relieved. And also, receiving reinforcements from old allies was even more welcome. The Legio Ignis had actually fought beside the Salamanders before. During the Great Crusade, the Titans had battled with both the Night Lord's Legion and the Salamander's Legion in the compliance of Karaton. At the moment, though, things looked extremely bleak for the war machines. The Titans of Legio Ignis had suffered many defeats at the hands of the Death Guard. Plaguecasters summoned demons to inhabit and corrupt the Titans, the warp entities causing the functioning of these god machines to falter. In their moments of weakness, the Death Guard fired everything that they had in focused volleys, laying low the number of the behemoths, their rotting mechanical corpses decaying in the blessings of Nurgle. Still, the two remaining engines of war heroically kept up the fight. However, the enemy had taken themselves into the Hive cities, having little tactical reason to engage the remaining Titans, the Death Guard mostly ignoring them and dared them to fire on their own civilian populations. No matter how much the Titans had tried to bait the Death Guard into open battle, the traitors were incredibly experienced and didn't fall for any of it. The traitors considered the Titans already defeated in this war, and are not so easily manipulated as other forces of chaos into mindless bloodlust. The Death Guard are patient and inexorable. They do no action without purpose. Not only did this keep the surviving Titans of Legio Ignis frustrated, the traitors would not face them openly, but if they happened to find a way into the cities, if the machines attacked, they'd kill their own people as well as the traitors. So the Titan Legion found itself in an infuriating stalemate, as the civilians of the planet suffered and perished. The feed processing cities were the next objective in conquering the planet, and the Death Guard knew that in time all would fall to the entropy of the Plague God. The Ybrannis system would be theirs. However, the Traitor Legion did not foresee the coming of the Fireborn and their cleansing flame. After a short opening battle to establish a drop site to stage their offensive, the Salamanders entered the feed processing cities one by one to cleanse the corruption of the heretics, while assisting in defending the ordinary human population as best they could. Much was too tainted to be saved and required burning for purification. Poxwalkers and other horrors of Nurgle were everywhere, and many civilians were beyond saving from the virulent plagues of the Death Guard. It had been some time since the 14th Legion and the Salamanders had fought one another, and it became apparent how similar they were in many aspects. Both Marine forces were fighting in their preferred environment, the short-range firefights bloody and straightforward. The fight upon Ybrannis Secundus was a grinding test of endurance and will through savage attrition battles. The sorcerers of the Fourth Plague Company threw every warp trick that they knew at the Fireborn, but no matter how horrific the fighting got, the Salamanders yielded no ground. Forged in the fires of battle, the Brothers of Nocturne were more than a match for the traitors. The Death Guard found themselves facing an enemy just as tough as they, and more than willing to stand firm against their fecundant ways of war. The battle for the two planets raged on to the point the once verdant Agri-worlds became blasted wastelands. and the opposing factions suffered so much constant warfare, their armor became so battle damaged they almost appeared unrecognizable. The ordinary human Ybrannis PDF fought beside the Salamanders throughout all the conflicts, slowly being whittled away on the anvil of war. The mortal warriors never left the Salamanders' side in defense of their worlds, and never ceased fighting with heroic bravery. Despite this, both factions found themselves in a stalemate. The wretched shrugged off mortal wounds that would have killed any ordinary space marine, their bodies disgustingly resilient against all attacks. And the sons of Vulcan's superiorly crafted war gear and enduring strength never yielded for a moment. The tides of battle had to shift soon, or if this kept up, eventually neither side would have any warriors left to fight. Seizing the initiative, the Salamanders resorted to immolation protocols despite the massive damage that it would cause to the Agri complexes, filling entire Death Guard-held areas in flame and igniting industrial complexes in massive firestorms. These attacks attempted to cripple the Plague Marines but did not have the desired effect, though it did send a lot of incredibly flammable chemicals into the air around the hive cities. So the Fireborn focused on killing the commander of the warband, the Eater of Lives. In the dark corridors of an Agri city, they eventually succeeded in killing the commander. The Salamanders assassinated the leader of the Death Guard company through an incredibly bold gamble. Yet somehow, the commander seemed to survive death, which very much vexed the Space Marines. The warlord was seen again not long after, so the Salamanders sent another kill team to hunt him down. And then he came back, and they killed him again and again. The Salamanders were unaware that the warband leader was a demon that utilized the gestalt power of disease within the Death Guard to manifest within them and possess their very mind and bodies. Yet, despite this frustration, the Sons of Vulcan fought on in grinding attritional warfare that only few of the gene-crafted sons of the Primarchs could ever hope to achieve on any level, such as the Salamanders or Death Guard. So the ordinary human warriors of the PDF slowly died in battle in defense of their home system, and eventually none remained at all. The Salamanders would honor the Planetary Defense Force's bravery by defeating the heretics and saving the Agri-worlds from chaos corruption. They had valiantly fought beside the Fireborn in defense of their system to the very last man, leaving, at this point in the battle, only the Salamanders and the remaining 2 Legio Ignis Titans to oppose the servants of Nurgle. For 3 months, the battle continued before any change, giving one side or the other any ground. That is until the ash and chemicals from the massive infernos caused by the Salamanders formed into blizzards. The immolation protocols worked out after all. Their flamecraft caused chemical reactions in the environment that devastated the chaos-held war zones. And not seeing any tactical advantage in remaining any longer, the Eater of Lives commanded that they refocus the war effort, so the Death Guard retreated from Ybrannis Prime entirely to redeploy on Ybrannis Secundus, giving the victory of the main Agri-world to the Imperium. The Salamanders and surviving Titans also redeployed and continued the battle for the contested planet, though this time, the advantage was firmly held by Imperial forces. Salamander Terminator squads and Assault Centurions were let loose. With flame and endurance, they manipulated Death Guard movement into kill zones, which whittled away their numbers continuously. Any monstrous demon engine the remaining Titans blasted into oblivion. Salamander Elite Fire Drake Terminators and Land Raiders struck through the breach in the Death Guard lines. They pushed the heretics into an entirely defensive posture, as the servants of Nurgle slowly lost their grip on the conquered territory that they'd claimed, and with the last reserves coming in to perform a coordinated melt strike, the Salamanders achieved the destruction of crucial Death Guard siege engines, turning the battle completely in their favor. Salamanders' armored vehicles struck through the breach well past defensible positions and deployed in a relentless assault on the falling back Traitor Legion. And it was at this point that the Eater of Lives saw that the wretched could no longer achieve any meaningful victory, and to remain and fight would be pointless, though the demon was not as enraged as one would think. In fact, it seemed kind of content. The Eater of Lives considered the whole endeavor an experiment that produced useful results, and it would use the knowledge it gained from the Ybrannis conflict in the future to spread the blessings of Nurgle. Issuing the last retreat, the demon cut a seeping gash in reality and extracted its forces through the warp portal. The Salamanders then scoured the system, purging all the lingering taint and all abandoned Death Guard pawns and abominations. Their scouts found some of the Life Eater plague vials the 14th Legion was planning on using to taint food shipments and spread contagion across the entire segmentum. Realizing that their actions on Ybrannis had saved countless lives. Yet to stop the Chaos Taint utterly, the Space Marines had to cleanse much of the system further, and in doing so, felt despondent at the destruction they had to commit to the once fertile and beautiful Agri-worlds. The utter extermination of the entire Ybrannis defense force weighed heavy on them, but still the war was won.